All right, final part of Wano time. I'm so excited because I get to continue on with the series today, and I did get impatient, so I did read the couple little chapters leading up to the next island. So I'm at the next island, but I haven't continued yet. And I'm just so excited. Okay, so where we left off before, Joy Boy has been revealed. The elephant, whose name I cannot pronounce, said that Joy Boy has returned, and we get final confirmation with Momo saying that's Luffy's voice and Luffy is Joy Boy, which I'm assuming no one took as a surprise because main character, the design wise, not really sure. I feel like someone in the comment sections was so heavily hinting that it was Luffy that this didn't really come as a shock. Um, but I still do love this because now I'm wondering Joy Boy's connections to the Void Century and with the Will of D, and I am leaning mostly towards my original theory of the Will of D being an original pirate crew, now led by Joy Boy, who probably the name is in reference in some way, mistranslation handed down, similar to Jolly Roger. I'm going with they were enemies of the gods, which can either be enemies of the celestial dragons, enemies of the people captaining the original ship, like Pluton, named after a god, or enemies of someone who had the original devil fruits that were like god zoan types, but Joy Boy being one of them who also had a god zoan type. I don't know. There's a lot of different options. I'm really excited to learn about the Void Century and the war and what happened to them and the ancient weapons and what became of them. Are they all ships? Are they not all ships? Because clearly the Poseidon's a mermaid. I'm very excited for the history and the lore to be revealed. Sticking with that tinfoil hat theory, I'm going with one of them had to have been a traitor on the original ship. So the original crew, which is it possible that because the elephant had a crime that they're somehow related to the original traitor and the descendants or inheritors of the will of them was the Rocks guy and then Blackbeard in terms of characters with D in their name that are traitors? I don't know, but I'm very excited. So we go to the fight with Kaido as Luffy has risen. He has taken on this new Gear 5, and I love the design. I mentioned before, I did see the design in a thumbnail image, but I wasn't 100% sure if that was confirmed or fan art, and now it is 100% confirmed. And oh my god, I am understanding why what was with the reactions every time I called Luffy a Looney Tunes. I wasn't even the comment that told me that it was related to Gear 5. I did not expect it to go this hard into Looney Tunes. I was not expecting the eyes to pop up. I was not expecting him to use Kaido as an actual jump rope. I was not expecting literally everything that happened with Gear 5. I need to see this animated, and oh my god, I'm so excited for the time that this gets animated. I'm pretty sure I filmed my reaction to reading the chapter where it's everything happens, so cut to that real quick. In every era, the world government has attempted to recover the Gum Gum fruit, and not once has it ever succeeded for 800 years. What the hell is up with the Gum Gum fruit? It is as though the devil fruit is trying to escape our grasp, and it very well might be. Zoan fruits contain a will of their own, and this particular fruit has the name of a god. The other name of the Gum Gum fruit is the Zoan human. What the hell? Okay. The Zoan type human fruit, the mythical type model. I keep possessing a body with the properties of rubber and fighting in whatever way he fantasies, brings a smile to the face of the people, the warrior of liberation, also known as Nika, the sun god awakening, brings his rubbery body greater strength, physical strength, and freedom. It is said that in all the world there is no power more ridiculous. Okay, back to Luffy. I can do everything I want it to do. I think I can fight a little bit longer. My heartbeat sounds so funny. This is the pinnacle of what I can do. This is Gear 5. Gear 5. Gear 5. Come on. I don't want to see Kaido right now. What's up there? On the roof. Supreme King. Oh, it's a big hand. He's just yanking Kaido. I'm starting to see why people laughed whenever I said that called Luffy a Looney Tune. He's gone full Looney Tune God mode. And it's wonderful. Come jump rope. It's like something from a comic strip. Accurate, Kaido. Who says I'm at my limit? Progressively transform back. Oh, I'm all tuckered out. No, he's transforming again. Kaido saying, careful or you'll die. Luffy saying, you actually think I'm afraid of that? And what kind of world can you create, Straw Hat? I'll make a world where my friends can eat as much food as they want. I don't like this underground magma pool. I swear, if Magma Bastard shows up, someone better kill him. At any rate, I'm going to be joining you on your. At any rate, I'm going to be joining you on your ship. I'm Kozuki Oden, otherwise known as Yamato. Nice to meet you. And Brooke's all for it. Robin's fine with it. Jinbei's just like, if the captain says so. Kinemon, I've run out of things to say. What do I do now? Just keep going. Bluff your heart out. I'm Kozuki Momonosuke. Oh, guys, all grown up. He finally got to see his sister again. I want to talk about the setup and foreshadowing to this, because clearly I haven't done a reread yet, but I was told that there's a lot of setup and foreshadowing in Sky PS, so I'm excited to reread that. But I also want to talk about how much did Oda really think this power through? Did he know it from the beginning, or is this something he decided later on? Mostly my question comes from, I think he had an intendant, he understood Luffy's power from the beginning, but I'm assuming probably the Sun God stuff might have developed later. But back in Enies Lobby, when Rob Lucci is talking about his power and Gear 2, I made the comment that Luffy's Devil Fruit allows him to fight with whatever he can think of his body allows him to achieve and allows him to do. So he's limited by his imagination on what he can think of his body's capability of, just because his body really had no limitations because of the effects of the rubber. Rob Lucci was saying that Gear 2 was capable of activating because he pumps his blood, and that puts a lot of strain on the heart and body, which should burst it, but because it's made of rubber, he can take that pressure. And I just added imagination thing, because again, that's kind of a common trope. Believe in your dreams, imagination is important, insert SpongeBob meme. So I'm wondering how far in advance did Oda even have this idea and how much it's going to play into the future, but I am loving it so very much. So the fight has resumed. Kaido more or less apologizes for the interruption, saying he didn't want that to happen. He was having a good fight, and Luffy's more or less same. Let's continue. And he had grabbed Kaido by making a comically large hand to grab and rip him back up to the sky as he was down there about to try to find Momo to kill him. And they continue their fight. At one point, Luffy gets swallowed and then inflates into a balloon in Kaido's stomach, causing him to expand, go on out, up into the clouds, grabs Kaido. Kaido uses it to shoot fire up, saying, I know where you're to because you're holding on to me. Which Luffy just takes, and it does nothing, and he's just like, this is it's fantastic. It's wonderful. I have no words. And I think some of my favorite parts, besides the jump rope, is going to be him saying, like, you're out of energy, you've got nothing left. And then Luffy's just like, who says I have nothing left? Who says I'm at my max limit? And he deflates, and he turns back into, like, tired, normal base 1 Luffy. And I'm thinking, oh god, is it like Gear 4, where now he has to wait 10 minutes, recover, do something? What's the side effect of Gear 5? Only for Luffy to immediately transform back into this Gear 5 form and continue the fight. So I'm very, very interested on what the side effects are. Because Gear 2, I'm only assuming. Oh, did I talk about this in the other video? I don't think I did, so I'm going to discuss that. So Gear 2, when it was first revealed, was talking about how it was shortening his life a little bit each time he used it. And I kind of took that under the interpretation until he could master it without taking that standard stance. Perhaps it was shortening his life every single time it happened. And there was always the chance that the limitations and effects and strain that all these gear transformations are having on the body could be limiting and shortening Luffy's life. And then that added on top of my fear from Impel Down when he was likely sacrificed a lot of his life trying to heal from that poison. And then in Marineford, when he took those extra medications, continuing to push his body past the limits to try to save Ace, was likely limiting his, or taking away some of his life once again. And now we have Gear 5, which I can only assume has a massive impact on the body, but no real consequence as he was able to recover right away. Is it possible that this one's putting even more strain on Luffy's life and cutting down his lifespan? I am terrified for Luffy, despite me wanting to go to the underworld, and that supporting my theory that eventually we'll get there. Throw on top of that, Kaido saying you die here or something like that, and even in your death, I will make sure that you are remembered and stories are told about your bravery and how strong you were because I respect you as a fighter. And Luffy's just being like, I don't care. Once I'm dead, I'm a body and bones, whatever. I'm going to fight. I'm going to win. I'm not afraid of death. I'm going to be the king of the pirates. Him saying he's not scared of death. I'm really, really worried about like the rule of threes, about people talking about Luffy dying. And eventually I feel like it's going to happen. I loved when Luffy noticed the flames below from Kanjuro's fire, and Kaido was talking about how all your friends are going to burn to death. There's nothing that can be done to save them. They're going to die, and you're up here fighting me. And Luffy's just like, I don't need to worry about that. I trust my friends to handle it. The confidence and respect and confidence he has in his crew to protect themselves and those and get those around them and get the job done is unmatched. So Jinbei obviously had taken care of all the fire afterwards, but he's also trusting in Momo to stop the city or the island from falling on the capital. And you have the flower, what's his name, starts with an H. Yakuza boss guy from the old man from the prison that I do enjoy, I just haven't learned his name apparently, talking about how even if the island falls, that's okay. We'll all die if so long it's worth it if Luffy defeats Kaido. And everyone's just like, I got family in the capital. I'm okay if we fall over the sea. It's okay. Like, keep fighting Luffy, finish him off. It's worth our life to save everyone else. And Momo is working so hard to try to take control and produce the clouds and the flames that he needs to take control of the island. And Luffy's just like, Momo, move the island out of the way, as he makes a giant fist and brings it down on Kaido, which will destroy the island if Momo doesn't get it out of the way. But Momo comes through in the end and gets the clouds to take control of the island and move everything safely out of the way from Luffy's punch. Again, I have my issues with Wano. I have my issues with the setup of new characters. I have my issues with some of the emotional investment in some of the fights. But my God, was this not an adrenaline high. Like, I think a good week or two has passed since I read this, and the adrenaline, as I'm talking about, is still there. I loved these fights. We had Momo telling the elephants that he's not ready to open the borders yet, and that causing the elephant to leave, which also limited the effects that the Marines could have in this area. And we'll talk more about bringing down and opening the borders after. But we get flashbacks of Kaido as a young child and then being sold into the military and the Marines, and starting to question the Celestial Dragon and rescuing King and just growing up. We see Big Mom and him together. We see more little moments of him and King and telling him that Joy Boy will be the one who finally defeats him, and King being like, well, I guess Joy Boy's never coming, because King's absolute faith in Kaido to be unbeatable is, again, very admirable, and I wish I got more of that between them. Kaido declares like, what will you do? What kind of world can you create, Luffy? And Luffy, of course, responds as he smacks Kaido into the ground, is that he's going to make a world where all his friends can eat as much as they want and never go hungry again. And it's a delight. It's wonderful. With Kaido's being defeated, Momo takes control of the island and lowers it safely before him and the samurai return to the capital. Big pink dragon walking out of the smoke as his now 28-year-old self, declaring that Kaido has been vanquished. Cutting in, because I did not give this moment the time it deserves. So they're running from what they think is Kaido, only for them to realize, hey, it's a different dragon. Hey, there's two dragons. What does that mean? And then the smoke just ushers in, and they're like, what's happening in front of the castle? Why is Kumurasaki here? Because no one knows it's Hiyori, and they just think she has died and just attend her funeral. And Boss Shiro, what does this mean? Because they don't know it's Denjiro. And it's like, you two are famous, but I wonder if anyone here will remember the rest of us. And then Kinemon and Dogstorm. And everyone's just walking out of the mist, and everyone's just shocked as they walk out. And it's wonderful. It's a great scene there. They scream it's them, it's the Kazaya 9. I thought they had all died 20 years ago, but Lady Toki's words were true, and again, just in shock. And then you have Momo addressing everybody. Momo walks out of the mist, and this is the first time we're shown his adult form, and we know he resembles his father, because the Konichi lady had said it previously. So he says, 20 years have passed since the death of my father, Kozuki Oden. Father, you mean I'm so glad that you have survived these long, difficult years. The fire festival is not ending. Starting tomorrow, you may do whatever business you like. You may drink to your heart's content. You will not pay for the water from the earth. No poison from factories will be allowed to spoil the land. There will be no slaves in Wano. And you have Tama just thinking back of her parents in the labor camps and how they died, and everyone getting sick, and seeing her at her parents' graves as she realizes everything that she's been through is finally over. How she had to sacrifice all her time making hats, trying to make enough money for food to eat and survive, and being taken in by the mask guy. And she just runs to Nami crying that everything's finally over, that they finally won. We found strong, faithful companions at sea, and part of the ninja pirate mink samurai alliance, we led a raid upon Onigashima. Kaido, Orochi, the Animal Kingdom pirates, every evil that plagues our fair land has been vanquished. And again, everyone crying in shock. Kids just there, like, what alliance did I didn't join no alliance. I love kids, great. And they're just cheering. And we will never forget the sacrifice of those brave soldiers who paid the way for this raid. Thinking back on everyone who has died, allowing them to get to where they are. My father gave me a name that means invincible. Under my rule, this parched and ruined land will turn into a paradise on earth. Leave me your strength and let us work towards this end together. I have traveled 20 years to save you all. From this day on, I, Kozuki Momonosuke, will lead the land of Wano. And he's thinking back to his parents and all that they've stood for. The true shogun has returned at last. We've been awaiting for you so long, Lord Momonosuke. The crowd cheers out for him. It is beautiful. And he's all grown up, but he's still a child. He still desperately needs therapy, and someone needs to help him because he is not an adult yet. Someone needs to help him. He's got so much responsibility on his shoulders. It's all a delight. So Luffy, now having won the battle, collapses back into his regular form, passes out, and Yamato is the one who catches him, and they're just so happy that it's finally over. We cut to the elders, who are saying that they realize that Wano's borders are not actually going to be open, and it was a very shrewd order from whoever's in command to think of that. So clearly not opening the borders was a good idea in this moment, because the Celestial Dragons and the world government wants it open. I assume doesn't mean that they know that the Pluton is there or not. Why do they want the borders open? Do they just want to conquer Wano? Because they probably have the forces necessary to do that. But I'm wondering if, I don't think they're aware that the Pluton would be there. I don't think that would be history that be passed on to them, because Crocodile clearly didn't know it. I am wondering how much, because the world government is likely the ones who suppressed the information about the Void Century and burned it all and hid it all. But I'm wondering if they ever kept some kind of, even if it's just oral records passed down through generations to say where certain things are, what happened, so they could use that information to for their advantage in the future, or not. Or if they just completely erased it and the current world government honestly knows nothing, which is why they want to probably destroy the poneglyphs or hide them or keep the will of D a secret. But they must need a reason to know why they need to suppress the name D from the public, because they get very upset when Luffy's bounty poster shows him in his transformed godlike form, but also is like, hey, didn't we say to get the D out of the wanted poster, we need to hide that name? Because they purposely hid Gold D Roger into Gold Roger to hide the fact that he's a member of this Willa D thing. So presumably they know a history for the Willa D, even though no one else knows it. I want to know how much the government knows. I am going with they just wanted to take Wano and like overthrow them and just bring them into the world government. But you never know. You never know. So back in Wano, everyone is recovering. Luffy, of course, is sleeping everything off. You have a little moment where Zoro actually, first I want to say Yamato took on a tradition of not leaving them and staying to guard, and also not bathing while they were unconscious, so they just stink. And when Zoro wakes up, it's like, hey, how come we're all clean? And Hiyori's just like, oh, I was taking care of that and bathing you. Sanji's probably pissed about that. Zoro didn't seem embarrassed, but you never know. I don't hate the two of them together, so if they end up getting together, I wouldn't mind. I normally don't ship characters, but they're kind of cute. Opinions on that are welcomed. And of course, now it is time to celebrate. Now it is time to party, and they do that. There's a party celebrating Orochi and Kaido's defeat, and there's supposed to be a nice, formal, fancy banquet, which of course only Jinbei is kind enough to attend, as everyone else got impatient and went out to the festival to party and eat. Luffy and Buggy, of all people, are named Emperors of the Sea, and because of course Buggy is. He is falling upwards. I'm not going to mention Buggy. I'll mention him in the next video because I think that was in the chapters that I read ahead and past Wano. Robin is looking for the poneglyph, the last row, or the second last row poneglyph, and both her and La go there and find that, where it's also revealed that the Odin's father, so Momo's grandfather and Hiyori's grandfather, is still alive. He was the original shogun who Orochi had the guy imitate, and really they just were holding him hostage, and by the time he was able to escape, Odin had already passed. There was nothing he could do, so he just stayed in hiding, and he doesn't want anyone to know, because Oda hates killing characters. But however, that means that the instructions on how to make, was it how the poneglyphs were made, or how to read them, knowledge that should have been passed from Odin to Momo, but wasn't, can now be passed on, all the information of their culture and history, because the grandfather's still alive. So I'm interested to see what Momo learns in the future that he learned from his grandfather. He then takes Robin and La to the road poneglyph. They get their tracing of that, but they also reveal that Wano is at the base of a mountain. They're actually at the top of the mountain. When the barrier was put on, it was flooded. So the old Wano is flooded and underwater, where the location of the Pluton is, and the only way to get access to the Pluton is to bring down the border and open Wano's borders, and then you'll get access to the Pluton. And I want to see it open. I want to know what the boat looks like. I want to know what information is there. But clearly Luffy doesn't care. He's just like, party and food. We won a battle. Everyone's free. Wonderful. Momo's establishing himself as a good ruler. He's giving everyone food. He's getting everyone access to clean water and healthy food. So that's wonderful. One little side note, we also had Caribou overhearing the conversation about the Pluton, and he's going to pass that information along to somebody. I do not trust Caribou, so that's terrifying. Meanwhile, you got someone checking in with Magma Bastard. What's his name? I was just calling... moving the camera. I was just calling him Tree Man. I should look up his name because he's probably actually going to be important. I'm going with Ryokugyu. I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm sorry. So he arrives and tells Magma Bastard that he's not going to make a big mess and cause a scene, and then proceeds to turn the entire forest into his own control. A bunch of trees sprout out, and their roots suck the life out of everyone around him, and that gets caught up in them. So Momo and the remaining samurai go to attack him, but they're overwhelmed. Yamato shows up and attempts to help. But Momo doesn't want him involved just because that he's going to be leaving or intends to leave with the Straw Hats. And then Wano needs to be able to protect themselves against these invading kind of forces for whoever shows up. And thankfully, Momo unlocks like the dragon breath thing and fire in order to defend himself and defeat this enemy, or at least throw him off a little bit. However, he's there to get the Straw Hats and is still very much a threat and about to go after them when, thankfully, Shanks, in the back room, God knows how far away, senses what's going on and is just like, hey, we're pretty close to Wano, haven't been there since we dropped off Odin. Usopp's dad's just like, I don't think I'm ready to see my son yet. I abandoned him as a child so many years ago. I'm not ready to be held accountable for that. And they're all like, Shanks, you want to go see Luffy? He's like, no, I can't see him yet. It's not quite time. But I'm not going to just let someone attack him while he's injured and recovering from battle. That's not good. Sends out his haki and terrifies this man. I can't remember if it knocks him out cold or anything like that, but definitely a warning that's just like, oh, I am not pissing off red-haired Shanks. Therefore causing him to retreat and not going after Luffy. The fact that Shanks can send out his haki from God knows how far away, and it being enough to scare somebody off, I love that for him, and I am so excited to see Shanks fight in earnest. Side note, I had a nightmare a couple of months back of Luffy returning the Straw Hat to Shanks after Shanks had died, protecting him, and it was like putting it on his like dead body before sending him off to sea to burn in the ship. My brain does not like me, apparently. Do not give me that kind of ending, Oda. You don't like killing characters. Remember that, please. And then Shanks decides that he doesn't want to go see Luffy or can't see Luffy because there's someone burning his flags in his territory and putting up Straw Hat flags. My darling angel who is me in the One Piece world that I always call Bartolomeo, and I feel it's not Mayo, Bartholomew. So happy that they're going to have to interact. Please don't hurt him. He means well. He just loves Luffy. He doesn't actually hate you, Shanks. Oh, I love it. I love everything that is about to happen. So Shanks says that he's ready to claim the One Piece and to get there, which, wonderful. Happy to have him on this journey as well. But my favorite moment actually comes in those couple little chapters before the next island, when Marco tells Luffy that he's found a ship that can take him back home, and he's not going to go travel with Luffy, sadly. He's had enough time babysitting people. And he goes to Shanks's ship, and they give him a ride home, and then when he flies off, Shanks is just like, what, you don't want to join my crew? And he's like, no, I've had enough time babysitting reckless pirates. I'm done. I'm retiring. And Shanks is just like, I'm not a handful. Tell him, Beckman. It's like, he's a handful. And I love that little moment there. What else happens? Because Momo is upset that the Straw Hats are leaving, and he's going to be on his own because, again, he is an 8-year-old child in an adult man's body now, and he has too many responsibilities. This boy needs therapy, and he should not be running a country without being properly prepared, and everyone's expecting so much from him. So he wakes up one day and sees Yamato there, and Yamato's just like, I've actually decided to stay because Odin traveled the island on foot and explored, so I should do that as well before setting out to sea. In reality, he just doesn't want to leave Momo and Wano unprotected and makes the choice to stay. Completely different than what Odin's choice was, where Odin wanted to run and explore above. Like, that need for adventure was greater than even the safety of his home country. So I like that for Yamato, and maybe eventually he'll distance himself from the idea of I am Odin and take on his own personality. I'm interested to see what happens with them, but either way, I am disappointed that he's not joining the crew because that would have been great. Momo and Kinemon race to the port where they meet up with Luffy, and he tackles him to the ground and he's screaming, he's angry, how dare you leave without saying goodbye, how dare you try to sneak off, and then he's crying, please don't leave me alone. And Luffy calls him a crybaby, and my actual heart hurts, and he explains to them that he's going to be a good king, or not king, shogun, he's going to be brave, and that if anyone has anything to say about it or anyone comes invading, like, here is our flag, hang this up and let them know that you are protected, you are a member of our crew, and no one's messing with you unless they want to mess with us, and gives them a copy of the Straw Hat flag for them to hang up. My actual heart, the Straw Hat flag is flying over Wano. It is now Luffy's territory, it's under his protection, and I love it. Speaking of my actual heart, Marco, before he left, and again, this is in the little chapters between Wano and the next island, looks to Luffy before he leaves, and it's just like, Ace would be so proud of you. My actual hurts. Oda hurts me. Like, Marineford literally traumatized me. I have not moved on from the pain of that yet. So, as everyone's getting ready to leave, Kid and Law and Luffy and their crews get on their boats. They're ready to go. They pass along the poneglyphs rubbings from Wano to everybody because they all work so hard to free Wano, so they all deserve a copy. Kid mentions something about someone with a scar. There's something there. And they're all getting ready to leave, and they choose to go off on different directions because now the alliance is over. They're going to be enemies in the future. I don't like that. And they kind of draw straws or something to decide who goes in what direction. And they had every intention of taking the safe route down from Wano, like almost like an elevator thing, rather than going over the dangerous waterfall. But then Kid makes the comment saying, oh yeah, you guys take the safe and easy route. And Luffy and Law are just like, what? Safe and easy? No. So over the waterfall everyone goes. They're off to the next island. I love this ending. I love it. I loved so many things about Wano. I don't know where I'm going to rank it because in terms of the entire series, just because it had some really low lows, I still don't like that flashback. I still feel like it was rushed. But my god, the highs were high. I don't know how I feel about this overall. I need to just reread everything before I can rank it, apparently. We have talk about Buggy making the cross guards with, actually, I don't know if that was revealed until the, in-between chapters, so just in case it wasn't, I'll hold off on that for just a minute. I'll talk about that in the next video. I'm going to, oh, actually, no, I need to address the comment section, or the community tab section, to make sure I didn't miss anything. So questions for that. Before I go into the community tab about people's favorite moments and if any questions or things to address, I will address one thing from the last video. Obviously, I extremely misspoke when I was saying that I liked how Kid and Law were calling each other by their first name. I did mean that kind of literally in terms of like Trafalgar Law first being name in front of physically when I'm speaking. But I don't know if I even knew that La was his first name, just because I've never stopped to think about it, and I don't know his the names of any of his family members, and I banned myself from the Wiki page, so I can't look anything like that up. I don't know if I knew it, because I remember Luffy calling him Traffy so much, I just assumed that he was referring to his first name and calling him a nickname. But then obviously Monkey D. Luffy, I know the last name goes first, and I'm kind of just questioning when here in the West do we stick to commonly calling people in the anime by the Japanese custom of going last name, first name, so Monkey D. Luffy, Trafalgar Law, Nico Robin kind of thing. Like, I'm not going to say Robin Nico. I'm not going to say La Trafalgar. It just doesn't sound right. Yet it's more common in other anime for, say, Naruto Uzumaki. It's not uncommon to hear Uzumaki Naruto. but it'd be more common for people in regular conversation to go first name, last name in that anime. In Bungo Stray Dogs here, it's more common for, again, you have Ryunosuke Akutagawa. I did not know Akutagawa was his last name until I met one of his family members. I'm like, oh, okay. Yet also in that anime, everyone calls them Dazai, which is his last name, and another character, Chuya, which is their first name. So it's not consistent for when in that anime people are called by their first or last name. And then you have, like, in Bleach, I hear people saying Ichigo Kurosaki, but I don't really hear the conversation of going the reverse. So what kind of determines when we stick to the Japanese custom versus switching it to Western of first and last? Not that this is important at all, but I am curious. All right, something that you probably missed. Tama is Kurozumi. Mentioned a couple times in the comment section, yes. Did not notice that at all. When she went to her parents' graves and it turns out she was of the same family of Orochi Bastard. Do you remember the scene and paying respect to the Grace parents? I wish Oda was more apparent and clear in this panel instead of making it so hard to catch. It would have been cool to see Sakazuki address that. I don't think it changes. Does this information change your opinions of the characters of the arc? Not really. I really wish we got more into addressing how this family was mistreated. People were killed, and they hadn't done anything wrong. They were just born into the wrong family, and the people of Wano were in the wrong for being prejudiced against them for the sins of the grandfather, and how that led to a cycle of hatred, which put Orochi Bastard in charge in this ultimate plan of destroying the country. So I do wish that had been elaborated more in, but again, Wano was doing so many things that was kind of brushed to the side. And I feel if Oda had more time, he probably would have went in more into Tama's past and had, like, good examples of this family and bad examples, and to really explore how wrong the citizens were for destroying this clan. What was your first impression after learning Ashura and Izo actually died? It was, they're dead? We're getting a monument to them? They died? I did not think they were dead. I did not know they died. I had zero grief because it was done panels ago. I love Izu so very much. I cannot pronounce his name, but he sailed with Whitebeard. He came to fight and was friends with Ace. Of course I loved him. And I didn't even get to properly grieve his death because I didn't know he died. I'm still upset about that. He also died protecting Nico Robin in a way because CP0 was after her. So that man deserves better. What do you think of Yamato deciding to stay behind to protect Wano instead of leaving like Odin did? Yeah, no, I definitely wish that he had joined just because he's a lot of fun and I love his character design. And he's very, very strong, but it kind of works out in the sense that probably too strong to join the crew narrative plot story-wise. And I do appreciate so much that he chose to stay behind with Momo to protect his home and kind of doing the opposite of Odin. And I would like for them to kind of get their own identity and see how that affects their character and be their own person, and just this need of freedom and probably even family and love and respect, I'm sure that they'd appreciate. So I am happy that they're staying to protect Wano rather than a selfish desire for needs of adventure. But I also want them to be free and happy. So I wish they joined the crew selfishly, but I'm happy for the sake of the people at Wano that they have someone there to protect them now. In the first chapter, Lucky from the Red Hair Pirate said that they had stolen the fruit from an enemy ship that was explained in Wano. Does the first chapter say Wano? I don't think the first chapter says Wano. That was just, yeah. I remember them saying it was stolen from an enemy ship. I really want to know how far in advance Oda had some of this stuff planned out. Or just Oda looked back and was like, okay, I can use this here scene and incorporate it into this later chapter to play it all back into each other. I'm leaning more towards the latter, but I don't know. Throwback to Shanks versus Whitebeard splitting the skies and the Conqueror's Coding. Also, Ryu was the first scene when Semato was fighting Luffy. Oh, was he? Apparently the Tree guy was seen in Sabade. The splitting of the sky is probably one of my favorite moments. That real Emperor of the Sea moments and the clashing, the splitting of the sky. I love that. What do you think of the Beast Pirates as a crew? Unlike Big Mom and Whitebeard, they don't run as a family, but are still willing to die for Kaido, whether that's because they think he can't be beat or just respect and loyalty. I feel nothing for the Beast Pirates, and I think that's just a lack of time devoted to them. A couple of comments had said that when you were reading this week to week, they did have, like, they cared about these characters and it didn't feel like they just came out of nowhere. So I understand that. Just you're with them for years at this point when Wano was coming week to week. But when you're able to read it chapter without stopping, there's nothing to them. And I wish it was expanded on more because I loved how loyal they were to Kaido and the respect of strength. It almost reminds me of like Boa and Amazon Island, just because where they represent beauty and power, these people, also the Beast Pirates, also just follow strength. And I really did love that element to it. So it's a different type of crew. And King especially's respect and loyalty to Kaido, I wish was explored more or set up earlier, anything like that. If we had King in previous arcs just being ambassador for the Beast Pirates or something like that, I would have really liked that. Wano been mentioned in Marineford. The Oars flashback with Ace made me cry my heart out, I'm aware. The sword was mentioned in Thriller Bark, and third part when Zoro had his hometown, the creator of the powerful sword. That's about Wano being mentioned way before. And pro and con, because we've been anticipating Wano, A, because I knew it was coming up, because I'll see you in Wano meme. But it's also been hinted at, so every time it was brought up, I'm like, oh, that's an island we're getting to soon, and I'm growing anxious, and I'm seeing, then we introduced Momo and the samurai, I'm like, oh, Wano's coming, I'm so excited, and then it felt, I'm sorry to say, it felt rushed, and again, I get the difference between reading week to week and being able to binge it all, but so much was happening in Wano, and we had so much build-up and anticipation to it, leading back, that I wish we could have spent more time fleshing out the characters there. And that's my one complaint, that the characters weren't fleshed out as much as I would like, given how much build-up there was. But I love the build-up to it. And then the payoff at the end, the final fights were fantastic. But I didn't have the emotional connection to Wano or the characters of Wano that I had with even something as simple as Fishman Island. So that's probably not a popular opinion there, but the build-up was good, the ending was good. That middle section when they actually got to Wano was lacking for me. Favorite moment was when Luffy turned Gear 5 and jumped in the same pose as Nika in the moonlight shining over him. Agreed, that was fantastic. That is a very much an iconic image, I'm sure of it. So I was reminded, people in the comments saying like Skypiea and in the clouds, him taking that fight with Enel, and again, it just leads itself so well to a Riri, but that was a good moment, yes. Oh, love to hear your thoughts on Zoro's fight in the anime, as well as some of the other fights. I'm definitely going to be watching Wano when I get to that. I'll record reactions and thoughts for the individual fights and the anime versus what I remember from the manga. Personally, I didn't like the way Wano ended, really. Curious to see your first impressions. I was on an adrenaline high the entire time. Found King to be extremely fascinating, agreed. I was wondering how you felt about him. I loved his devotion to Kaido, and again, my complaint is he wasn't introduced earlier. Like, I would have brought him in probably in Dressrosa, just as a very brief little, hey, Doofy, you getting our devil fruits that we asked for, Kaido's not going to be happy with the delay, and maybe a little bit of a flashback there, or something about who he is. I would have just like a little moment to set him up earlier. He very suddenly grew on me a lot. Same. I liked him more than Queen. A character like him to be introduced so late in the story seemed odd at first. I just wanted his development with Kaido being introduced, but that's true in terms of his species. And, what? No, I can't Google it! I'm sure I got written down somewhere. I'm just calling him a god or a celestial or something like that. A different species, very strong, living on the red line or something. to be introduced late is a little bit different and odd, and I want to see how it plays and where his people are and what the government has done to them because they were experimenting on him. I want to see how that plays going into the final arc. Really worked for me, made sense. He must have had a very tough life, which is probably why he respects Kaido so much for saving him. Agree. Then it turned out the person he had been waiting for was Luffy all along. True, he was waiting for Joy Boy to return, and he had thought that Kaido might be Joy Boy. Does that mean the king could join up with Luffy eventually? Because I don't believe Oda killed anyone off. I'm interested to see how King's relationship with Luffy would go if we come back with King eventually. What do you think about the backstory of Kaido and Big Mom and how it was handled? I don't mind it seemed to be fast. It was a little fast, but it didn't bother me, that section. Because we still have the Rocks parts to explore, and that's when Kaido and Big Mom formed their relationship. So have no doubt that when we get to the Rocks, that Kaido and Big Mom will be explored more. I think that's a good time to explore it more. I didn't want it to overwhelm this arc, and I think what we got was good and enough. And her taking him under her wing and just little tiny moments, the way he protected her and helped where he could, but also was antagonistic against her. I was happy with their relationship dynamic, how much was explored so far, but I do want more, especially if we get anything with the Rocks Pirates. That's on Big Mom as a whole. I love Big Mom, okay? Let's start with that. I love a manipulative character. I love a narcissist. I love how she commands her family. She's terrible. She's a wonderful villain. And I even love the impulse control issues. I love the rages. I really love Big Mom. Lots of people felt that she was underwhelming compared to Kaido. That's just power level wise, so I like her personality a lot more than Kaido. So the fact that I felt the Kaido and the Beast Pirates were kind of rushed in development, having her there was definitely a benefit in terms of my emotional investment, and I'm very upset that her children were also not there. Talk about the hunger, pain, and amnesia taking away her agency. I wasn't a big fan of the amnesia. But then that brought us into giving us the moment of her protecting Tama because the people were nice to her, and then her turning on the Beast Pirates temporarily for burning down the village. So I feel it was worth it. This is true, though. She never really had a solid win, which isn't great for an emperor, but she was going up against very strong people. So I personally love Big Mom. I really do love Big Mom. Oh, what's your predictions for Law and Kid now that we're out of Wano? I don't want them to betray Luffy. Law's going to get into another situation where they team up with Luffy because Law has no reason to fight, go out of his way to be antagonistic against Luffy, but I can see Law putting his own interest in the interest of his crew above Luffy, so he might team up with other people that Luffy is fighting, maybe. Kid I can see being very antagonistic, especially because Kid's going to have beef with Shanks for the arm thing. They're all after the poneglyphs. We don't know where the last one is. Eventually, someone's going to have to try to kidnap Robin in order to read it. That's not good. Anyone who threatens Nico Robin becomes my enemy, for the record. Do you like the change of Luffy's Devil Fruit from Paramecium to Mythical Zoan? What do you think of the most ridiculous power? I love ridiculous powers. We've established I love tinfoil crazy hat theory, so the more a story can go batshit off the rails, the more I'll love it. So I'm not sure how I feel about this being a twist, though. I don't think it's a good twist, because his powers haven't changed. We just learned more about the powers. I'm more interested on if we learn that the gods' Zoan devil fruits, there are more of them. So we have like a sun god. We might have I don't know if we'll have a water god because One Piece doesn't seem to have water powers because the water becomes your enemy. Water is the enemy of people with devil fruits. Is that going to play? Why does eating a devil fruit? Why does the ocean hate you if you eat a devil fruit? Can that be explained in the future, please? Can that come into the story? Because I'd like that. Does the Poseidon hate devil fruit users? Does that mean the other ancient weapons hate devil fruit users? No. Davy Jones. I want an explanation for devil fruits and water. What was I saying? Right. I don't mind the change from Paramecium to Mythical Zoan, but I will be more interested if we learn about other god devil fruits. So we have sun, maybe an earth, air, Now I'm thinking Avatar. Not quite sure what I want. I don't think it changes the story for me, but I love the ridiculous powers. I want to see how he's going to master Gear 5, what the consequences of Gear 5 are going to be, and maybe it can only be triggered by a near-death state, but then how are we going to up the stakes? Because if the stakes are Luffy is threatened with death and then he activates Gear 5 and then it's more or less unbeatable because he's a Looney Tunes character, how are we keeping the tension? So that I want to see how it's going to play into the story. Mostly, I want to know what the consequences of Gear 5 are going to be. Oh, how does some devil fruits being able to get god powers affect your tinfoil hat theories? I'm sure I'm going to come up with plenty of tinfoil hat theories. How do you feel about Wano as a whole? I'm very mixed. Like I said, the highs are high and the lows are low. I honestly have no idea where I can rank this. Like the Odin flashbacks, I maintain are the weakest. Grant for sure post time skip. It might be low even pre time skip. But the highs were so high, and I love these fights. I have no idea where I could possibly rank this among all the other arcs. Problem with Big Mom's amnesia thing, again, it gave me the moment with Thomas and the village, so I'm okay with it. Fake out deaths of characters. Very good point. I gotta dock Wano a couple points for making me not grieve characters because they actually died when I didn't know, and then faked out perfectly good deaths. Kinemon specifically. Oh, that pissed me right off. The amount of fake out deaths. No, you don't care about the samurai, but Kinemon been with us since Pug Hazard. How do you feel about Kinemon surviving this arc? If they had killed him off, ending with the flashback of him and Momo learning to call each other father and son, I would have been crushed. And I enjoy like emotional, devastating anime. So that would have been perfect. And the fact that it was a fake out and La's powers were still in effect and he could be cut apart and still be fine, I was pissed because that would have emotionally traumatized me. So I guess he's the one, the samurai that I enjoy, so I'm happy he survived, but I'm sad we missed out on an emotionally very traumatizing moments. Wano's arc surpassed Dressrosa for the longest arc in One Piece. I did not realize that. What's your theory about the Pluton? I did used to think the Pluton was with whatever the One Piece at Laugh Tale, and now I have to readjust that. See, I want to know who had the ancient weapons. Was it the world government or was it the ancient civilization? That would answer that would help fill in some of the blanks at least. All right, pause for a second just because A, I need to think about that, and B, the camera was about to die, so I figured I'd charge it for a minute. I am going to go with the ancient weapons were actually used by the enemies of the people in the Void Century, and the Willa-D people were on the side of the Void Century. And the Willa-D being the enemies of the gods is actually a reference to enemies of these ancient weapons, rather than the enemies of the celestial dragons, the obvious answer. Please note that I am aware that the justification that the world government is using for killing people researching the Void Century is the fact that they would uncover the truth about these ancient weapons, bring back a weapon to create a war. And it's kind of implying then that the people in the Void Century were the ones who made and created these weapons, but at no point in time am I going to believe anything the world government is saying. So, for all I know, they're the ones who had the weapons in the first place and used it to destroy the people of the Void Century, and everything is their fault. So, I want that to be a surprise switcheroo kind of thing, and that the elephant betrayed Joy Boy in such a way that led to the wouldn't be the capture of the Pluton. Willa-D people, Wano, because good relationships there with making poneglyphs, and Void Century captured one of the ancient weapons, and the elephant betrayed them for something. Barriers went up, and they flooded it to get the Pluton at a commission, and now they're going to use it to attack the true enemy of the world government. Still doesn't feel like that works. I will think of an even crazier tinfoil hat theory for how it's going to play. It's obvious eventually the borders need to go down, and they're going to retrieve the Pluton. Frankie's going to drive the Pluton. I'm going with that. Uranus is on the moon. Gotta be. Where else is it going to be? And Poseidon's in the ocean. So how I want narratively Laugh Tale to play a part in the main stories with the poneglyphs, because the poneglyphs and the road poneglyphs are leading to the final island, and when Roger got there, he could only laugh. I'm Maybe they were searching for the Gum Gum fruit, the original Zoan God Nika one, and that was the one that was missing, and there's other devil fruit there for the other gods, but the one they want wasn't there. What would cause Roger to laugh? It had to have been something like, hey, people in the past, you really got us. You really played the world government for fools. You're going to get the final laugh. I can't wait to see how your final plan plays out. Maybe? We'll see what I think after I get through Egghead. The fact that the ancient weapon is in Wano makes sense. You know about opening borders, but it can't be because it will but you can't because it'll unleash the weapon. There's a theory by someone else I heard about how what if Blackbeard goes to Wano and destroys the walls? Blackbeard would, wouldn't he? Personally, I still wish the Pluton was actually at the final islands, because that would make a little bit more sense to me than at Wano, but it makes sense for why Odin wanted to open the borders to make a path for Joy Boy, which I can only assume he knew the Pluton was there. So he wants Joy Boy to have the ancient weapon. What about the big hat that we have with the Reverie? Why was it a straw hat? Why does Roger have a straw hat? Why'd Roger pass the straw hat to Shanks? Why'd Shanks pass it to Luffy? Is it just a representation of the will? Is my tinfoil hat thing so crazy, really, for the straw hat being able to absorb haki and pass it along down generations to make you stronger? So the original big straw hat maybe was somehow passed it off to the smaller straw hats, and then that straw hat went down the line, went to Roger, gave him a bunch of haki, absorbed his haki, accumulated more, passed it on to Shanks, made him strong, passed it on to Luffy. Why Luffy's strong? Is that so crazy of a theory now? Because I said that as a joke a long time ago. I also said I was cursing whoever wear the straw hats might die. And then I said Nami, that would play with Nami. That one doesn't make sense, but there's so much that needs to be answered in the final arc. And lastly, what do you think about Yamato's character? And I'm going to say there instead of her obsession with Odin. For me, I really don't like it, because you want to be free, but you want to be someone else. You idolize Odin, but you can't be Odin. Just be yourself. Be Yamato. The whole thing about Yamato's character, but I like Yamato. It's just the obsession with Odin and the repeating the words of "I am Odin. I want to become Odin." Sure, we can talk about that. How do I explain this? I like the fact that Yamato found being trapped and repressed and not agreeing with their father, and then seeing Odin, this mythical figure who has been built up as this god upon men, and them being everything that they want. They want freedom, they want adventure, they want to live their own life. And then they see them boiling in oil and sacrificing their life to protect their friends. That's going to leave an impression on the young child. Speaking for pronoun-wise, he and she, I do not think Yamato is trans the same way Kiku is, just that I don't think they relate to the gender they're born on, or the opposite gender, really. I don't think it matters to them. I know nothing about gender identities. I assume they're gender fluid, that it doesn't matter to them. That's why they call themselves Kaido's son, and why I'm going to just stick with he pronouns until Yamato says, I am Yamato, I am fine being, they call themselves such and such as daughter, or starts using feminine pronouns, in which case I'll switch over. But I like the idea of them finding this journal and learning about this grand adventure and this history, and what the Kazuki family was doing to protect Wano. Maybe the idea about why the border needs to be open, why Momo needs to stay alive, and inheriting that will from Odin. And the inheritance of will is a big theme in Wano, so I do like that for them. And to just find someone that's like, this is the life I want, this is the person I idolize, I will embody them in every way I can, I will become them, this is my dream. I'm not going to say that's wrong, and I really like it as an addition to the story. What's your favorite plot twist in Wano? We have established batshit crazy theories. Love them whenever a story goes off the rail. So random introduction of time travel. Love that. Um, such and such being Denjiro, even though I saw it coming that he was actually working for Momo's family. Still loved that reveal. Still loved that character plot point with him and Hiyori. Um, Orochi Bastard still being alive multiple times, so I get to see him die over and over again. Love that. I don't really feel like the reveal of Gear 5 is a plot twist, just because it's more just learning more about his power, and we knew an awakening was coming, so being able to turn everything to rubber um just kind of felt natural. The next progression, the fact that he's a sun god one is interesting, but it wasn't as shocking a plot twist essentially, but it's wonderful. I love it. How does it feel to see our beloved boy being the Emperor of the Seas? Such a good boy. I'm so excited. It's wonderful. I love the idea of Luffy being the new Emperor of the Seas. So good. Actually referring to Buggy falling upwards. I loved this for Buggy. I can't believe I didn't like Buggy starting off. I was so wrong. Past Juska was an idiot. But it also applies to Luffy if you want. Yes, it applies to Luffy. If you're interested in the latest SBS, I will binge them and just read them all eventually. I put them off because it interrupted the flow of me binging the arcs, and I never went back, so I'll do that eventually. Revealed Zoro's family tree. Yes, I was told that in the comments. Relative of that guy. Similarities between some characters. They might be related in some way. Did Yamato staying in Wano surprise you? It did. I wanted them to join. Why do you think Shanks showed up to Wano? That's a good question. Why did Shanks... I'm gonna go with Shanks was there in case the borders opened. Because he knew that Odin wanted to open the borders, and I assume he would have known that the samurai were enacting Odin's will, but how did he know the samurai had returned? Did the government? Who knew the samurai were back? Why was Shanks at Wano? To get the poneglyph? I don't think he needs the poneglyph. He didn't go to get a rubbing. He must have already had it from maybe with Roger. Was he following somebody? I'm going with he was there in case the border went down, but I don't know who would have told him that anything was even going on, considering how close of a country it was, to let him know that he needed to be there because there was a risk of the border coming down, unless he's seen the marine ships going and surrounding Wano. I don't know. That's a good question. Just how strong do you think Shanks' hockey is? He sent some admiral running from God knows how far away. It's insanely strong, apparently. In my opinion, Shanks scares me. Agreed. Can he be the final villain? If I can't have Roger as the final villain, can it be Shanks? I want a gut punch. I want something absolutely traumatizing twist ending for who the final villain is. Because if it's just the pointy hat guy from the world government, that's not going to hurt me. I need someone I trust to betray me and be the big end goal big bad. Where does this arc rank for you? Oh, it's gonna be a hard one. That's gonna be very, very hard. I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I don't know how much the highs outweigh the lows. What do you think about Luffy smiling and laughing the more they fight against Kaido? I loved it. They both love to fight. They both love to test their skills. Ideologies pinned against one another. The world he's going to create. His goal to be Pirate King. I love just seeing him laugh and fight and smile. Do you think Wano Act 3 was too long? No. No, you're not going to get me to say that any arc is too long. My complaint is I need more. Arc 3 alone is literally as long as Dressrosa? Seriously? I did not realize that. Should Wano have been broken up into 4 or 5 arcs instead? I think it was fine. Where would you put those breaks? I don't really think you can. There's nowhere else really to break it up, unless you had another break immediately after defeating Kaido and then just the end arc, which we can make longer. Alright, what's Luffy and Roger's dream separate becoming the Pirate King. I really don't know. This is the person's theory below. Full disclosure, heard this somewhere else and really loved it, but the dream could be Luffy wanting everyone in the world to be free. That's the obvious answer, because he wants to be free, so a world of freedom makes sense. But I feel if it was something like that, they would have said it outright by now. And to Luffy, what's more free than being a pirate? So Luffy wants everyone to become a pirate. I want to say yes, but then I feel like that'd be forcing people into a role that they don't necessarily want. So I don't. If it had already been revealed that his dream is to make everyone pirates or make everyone be free or change the world so everyone can be free, then sure, it would go with his character fine. But I don't feel that's a big enough reveal. That's not something that people would laugh at when they hear it, in my opinion. Something that would cause people to laugh because it's so ridiculous and childish. I can't see people being shocked by saying, "Oh, I want world peace." I can't see child Luffy, who has just got the Gum Gum fruit, was saved by Shanks, kidnapped by bandits, being trained by Gert, just made friends with Ace and Sabo. What would his dream be? Sail to the end of the world? Are we in a time where people think the world is a little world cube and you can sail off the end of it? What would Luffy and Roger have the same dream as? It wouldn't be to achieve immortality or anything like that, to become immortal. It wouldn't be that, because Luffy doesn't care about dying. That's not a thing. I honestly don't know. The only answer that makes sense is for everyone in the world to be free and happy and to always party and to have all the food they ever want, achieve world peace. And for everyone, again, become a pirate makes sense. Again, it makes sense, but it just doesn't feel right to hold what it is back for so long. So I don't know. What do you think about Gear 5 and thematic importance of the series given the themes of Wano of hunger, free will, slavery, and prophecy? Definitely fulfilling a prophecy, so Gear 5 works for that. Sun God, his free will in fighting works. I'm not sure how it plays into hunger, though. What are some things you want to see from the individual Straw Hat members? I guess for everyone to achieve their dream, I want to see more of Nami mapping out the islands and the world and the oceans, which we got when I stopped watching the anime filler episodes. We did have actually an episode of that of Nami taking time to devote it to mapping things out, so I like that. I want to see more of that. Yeah, I want Robin to learn the truth of the history that she's been searching for. I want Brooke reunited with Laboon. I want Frankie to see his ship sail to the end. I want to see how Usopp's going to react to seeing his father again. Sanji finding the all blue. Chopper curing all diseases. I want them to all achieve their dreams, but otherwise I got no expectations for anyone yet. Oh, I might as well talk about this one. Thoughts on Hiyori's monologue at the end of Wano, particularly the line that that family, whose name I suck at pronouncing, Kurozumi, being born to burn, and that it invalidates Orochi and his history. Always thought we always have to remember that the whole family was prosecuted for the actions of one single member of his clan. The disdain for Wano as wholly justified, but usually in stories like that, necessary to have a faction that breaks the cycle of hatred, and it should be the protagonist. Oh, read more. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it was obvious that the name was a play off what Odin had said, born to boil, based on his name, and I looked it up when I read that chapter and confirmed it was like coal or something like that. So it made sense for Made to Burn. Pun on that. She's Odin's daughter. Of course, she's going to take that pun. Dark joke, but yeah. It did really feel like it was punching down on the family as a whole, so I didn't overly appreciate that. Especially one of the main things that I liked about this arc was I wanted it to explore more about the cycle of hatred and you needing to forgive and not place blame on other family members based on the actions of one family member. I'm a Naruto fan growing up, so obviously I like the cycle of hatred kind of storyline. Yeah, so poor joke, but she's traumatized and she's emulating her father, so I can't blame her for it. Especially, obviously, she's talking about the individual, not the group. Yes, it's very clear, but it's still a poor taste joke, but it's worth it for her to make. Oh, finally, the king. Someone called them Lutherians. That's the word I was looking for. A legendary race. What do I think makes them a legendary race? I have no idea. Probably their location where they live, something. Maybe their connection with the Void Century, something about their physiology. Maybe blessed by the gods? I don't know. It's very interesting. I want to see more. If you could request a cover image from Oda, what would it be? Something involving Bartolomeo and his crazy One Piece love of Luffy and the Straw Hats. Probably something related to that, I'm sure. Or the octopus from the Kraken guy from Fishman Island being reunited with his older or younger brother, and them meeting up with Luffy on the ship and just being like, hey, we found each other, we're safe now, thank you for taking down the Hody guy and letting us both be safe. I'll go with that one. Yeah. Personally, I found Wano pretty disappointing. I can understand why. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of this stuff. Kaido's lackluster backstory. I am assuming we're going to get more when we examine the Rock Pirates and or Big Mom, possibly when because she has to return when we get to the Island of the Giants. So I'm okay with currently being a lackluster backstory. Nika being revealed like 10 chapters before the G5 transformation. I agree that probably could have been foreshadowed more, but I'm not going to complain about foreshadowing because I didn't know this thing was coming really. And therefore I haven't reread anything. So I am curious for how well set up it was. It doesn't feel like it was properly set up. I would have preferred a couple legends. Especially I think they talked about the legends of the sun god literal chapters before the reveal. Emotional attachment to the samurai not built up enough. I have ranted about that. Completely agree. I feel the flashback should have at least partly been devoted to establishing them, their character, their connection with Wano, and their connection with Odin. Specifically when they took over that city that Odin became in charge of. I feel like we should have seen them working with the civilians, and we should have seen them left behind when Odin was off on his adventures and how they were dealing with the change with Orochi Bastard as Shogun, with the hunger of the people, what they were doing, whether they were selling their possessions, how we went from them being like bandits and outcasts to honorable, respectable samurai in all their fine clothes to when Odin came back, they're in like patched up kimonos and everything. And I would have liked to see that in between of them realizing we are not respected because of how we look. We are respected due to our duty and how we act, and we will act to protect the people while Odin is away. And I wanted to see those moments. And I'm very upset that we didn't get that. Momo holding up the island was sidelined to a couple tiny panels. I had to go back and look for those moments because I never did even see, like, did he make the flames? When did he grab the islands? Like, when did it happen? It was not a giant moment reveal. And yes, a lot of emotional impacts and consequences of things that were happening were relegated to very tiny panels, which was disappointing. Hiyori relegated to damsel in distress instead of finishing. I like Hiyori. I'm going to disagree with that one. I liked her giving her peace. I loved how we had her manipulating people behind the scenes starting off. I like that she was there with the fire and the sea prism nails pinning him down. And then I'm just see it as her trusting in Dendro to come finish him off when she has said her piece and watched him die. He's just there in the background waiting for her. And then the emotional catharsis of her crying into his chest. Personally, I loved that moment. I loved it for her. I loved that she came to the battle. And I'm fine with Hiyori, 100%. Yeah, saying the Korozumis were born to burn, continuing the cycle of hatred that led to Oroshi's perspective in the first place. I agree. I did not like the joke. I think that it was made because of Odin's joke, and it's just a callback to that, but it was a tasteless joke, but she's traumatized. I didn't like the joke, especially considering I would want some repercussions and understanding about how the people of Wano did wrong by punishing this family and getting themselves into this situation by creating Orochi Bastard. Yeah, the fact that Tama's never addressed as being part of that family, I'm assuming Oda wanted to do more. I think he wanted to do more with the cycle of hatred, prosecution of the family, and that was set up, and he just didn't have the time to actually flesh it out, so he just left these little hints of it. I'm going to assume there was a lot of Wano that he's like, I just got to get the story moving, and I think he left some things out, either to address later in the future or just felt he didn't have the time to devote to the world building that he once thought he had the time for. Kinemon and Kiku's fake out deaths. Meanwhile, Izu and Ashura randomly actually dying. Hated those moments with a burning passion. I would have been traumatized by Kinemon's death after those flashbacks we get with him and Momonosuke. And the fact it was a fake out. And then I love Izu, and him actually dying and me not realizing it, my blood was boiling. I was upset. Yamato in general, I like Yamato. I really like their design. I like their connection with Kaido. I like their connection with Odin. I like how they're protecting Wano. I like how they're sacrificing their dream of adventure to stay and protect Wano as Momonosuke is growing up and learning to be shogun and just there to protect him. I like Yamato. It doesn't feel like Yamato served much of narrative purpose other than being another strong fighter. They don't help shed light on Kaido at all, which feels weird. I agree, but I think it's more of an inheritance of will, which seems to be a common theme in One Piece, so I'm fine with Yamato. I love Yamato. Zoro gets a no character storyline in the Land of Samurai. That's a very good point. It's a very good point. Zoro really could have fleshed out his backstory a little bit more and his character a little bit more, given his connection with samurai, the cursed swords, and everything like that. Which again, I think is just something Odin had set up with back in the East Blue when he got his first cursed sword or second cursed sword, and had intended for it to play a role in the future, and then just realized he didn't have time. Big Mom and Kyle just getting knocked into lava. I don't think they're dead. If they are, that's disappointing. Big Mom for sure has to come back. Yeah, I just don't think we're done with them, so I'm not going to hold that against them. Pretty ambiguous conclusion of 2 of the 4 Yonko. Citizens of Wano never see what's happening to Onigashima. Onigashima. Thank my God, I cannot pronounce anything. Onigashima. They just kept partying without a care in the world. Yeah, kind of odd that they didn't see a big floating island and hear the battle coming towards them. But then you got the scene with the little one changing her message to the father, which was really cute. Been reading One Piece for over 20 years, and WoW was probably the biggest disappointment. I can see that, especially for how much it was hyped up and little mentions of it, and all the way from Punk Hazard and reading it week to week, knowing that you're getting to Wano and learning about this history and all the little foreshadowings of the setup. The buildup was so intense. I agree. I think Wano was lackluster given the buildup. Not a bad arc by any means. Agree. It's not a bad arc, and it has some highs, but it has the biggest gap between expectations and reality. I agree. I completely agree. Oh, okay. So I made a hints for Gear 5. Okay, helps me with when I do a reread, but far back as chapter 1. Seriously, the first thing Luffy says the day after eating the devil fruit is that he feels happier, or that he feels like he will always be happy. Different translations, differs translation to translation, but every single official translations I have checked him as saying something about happiness. I'm not quite sure I'd call that too much of a hint. Luffy having a ridiculous healing factor and resilience, like every zoan. That's true. With some clear examples, this is a fight against crocodiles, specifically the last one where he just ignored the poison out of nowhere in Thriller Bark. He was able to resist enough damage that would kill a normal person. That's true. That's more of a Zoan kind of trait, I think. But I think at the time I was just taking it to rubber is resilience, maybe. How he finished his treatment ahead of schedule, which according to Ivanka was impossible. Which according to Iva was impossible. Gear 4 being able to tank Haki. Gear 4 being able to tank Haki infused attacks and still maintain his rubber properties. And finally, although this is less of a hint, more of a call forward, the bit in Skypiea where Luffy's silhouette is almost the same as the one shown when we first hear about Nika from Who's Who. I think the only one I'm counting as a hint there is the Skypiea one, quite honestly. Do I think Law and Kid deserve the same bounty as Luffy? No, because most of the bounties aren't based on power. It's how big of a threat you are to the world government. And Luffy, with this fruit that they've been after for 800 years, is definitely a bigger threat. Ooh, do a villain tier list. Where would Kaido be? I'm very neutral with Kaido. I like moments with him. I like how strong he is. I like how he wants a good fight. I like the respect that he had towards Odin and Luffy. I liked his respect towards Big Mom. But as an individual character, it's not that he's bad, it's just other villains were fantastic. So, in comparison to other villains, Kaido's probably low on the list, but that's only because they were so great, not because I dislike Kaido. Tinfoil hat theory surrounding Zoro and the Grim Reaper, and maybe a bargain with deaths that he can sail until the series ends. I will definitely work on some tinfoil hat theories because there's some there. Why do you think the world government, who went to great lengths to hide the existence of the Nika fruit and to have it guarded, didn't do anything big to capture Luffy? I just think they didn't know. I think they genuinely thought Luffy had just a regular rubber paramecium fruit. I don't think they actually knew it was Nika's devil fruit. Oh, damn. Okay. While you're theorizing about Luffy dying, because I still think it's going to happen, I want to go to the underworld. I barely contain myself about Gear 5. I just realized Gear 5 happened when Luffy was near death, possibly did die. So maybe all the little moments I had between Gear 2 and the medicine and all those moments I said that was hinting at Luffy's death, this was Luffy's death. And it was the triggering and the activation of the god devil fruit to finally awaken was his death. So maybe I got what I wanted and I just didn't get to the underworld. Damn, I don't want that. I want to go to the underworld. For the record, part of the reason I want to go to the underworld is because, again, I want to be traumatized in anime, and emotionally so, and Luffy, going to the underworld and having one last conversation with Ace, getting to say a proper goodbye, and Ace saying how much he believes in him and he'll achieve his dreams, I will die, I will cry, I will never recover, I will never stop crying. And I want that. Of these three characters, who would you rather pet? Beepo, Karu, Vivi's duck, or Laboon? I will take the duck. I love the duck. I love the duck so much. But I love Beepo as well. If you had to belong to any of these three races, which will you choose? Fishman, Lucarians, or the Minx? I believe Lucarian would be the correct answer, but the Minx have lightning powers and transformations, so either one of those is fine. If the Straw Hats would only have one last place to visit, which of these three would you choose? The moon, the land of the dead. The land of the dead. We've established this. I want to go to the underworld. But the moon is a very good option as well, because that's where I feel the final weapon is. Or Elbath. Elbath is clearly more set up and intended to get to eventually, but I really want to go to the land of the dead, the underworld. Someone mentioning predicted the future of the Nico one just back with Gear 2, which I discussed already. Ooh, I can finally read Film Red. Perfect. Or not read, watch Film Red. About time. How do you feel about the reveal of the ancient weapon under Wano? I'm still mildly annoyed that the Pluton is not located at Laughtail. I'm mildly annoyed, but it works for why the borders need to be opened or can't be opened, or why the borders are there to begin with. Do you think the end of Wano was rushed and anticlimactic? Yes or yes? Yes. It was very much rushed. How many of your theories were proven wrong in this arc? Probably all of them. None of my theories, especially if I specify I want a batshit crazy tinfoil hat theory, and I'm trying actively to make it as crazy as possible, I don't expect any of them to come true. I just want them to. How was your first reaction to Gear 5 Toon Force? Toon Force is a fantastic name. I have that filmed. Definitely hyped for the crossguard. Okay, so the crossguard was mentioned in Wano. Perfect. I'm still going to talk about it the next time. All right, that took a while, but we are done. Cat is asleep. There he is there. He's destroying the couch, by the way. And I will check in after I binge the remaining couple chapters that I have left. Maybe a little bit more than a couple, but I'm going to start them now. Bye.